The message arrived at the Galactic Council space station on a quiet Tuesday morning. Ambassador Velkar of the Karathi Empire stood in the center of the Grand Assembly Hall. His forearms trembled as he spoke to representatives from 50 different alien races. "The Devourers have come," he said. His voice echoed through the massive chamber. "3 of our star systems are already gone. 20 billion of my people are dead." The room fell silent. Every alien in the chamber knew about the Devourers. They were nightmares made real. Giant biomechanical ships that ate entire planets, converting all matter into more of themselves. They had appeared from beyond the galaxy's edge 100 years ago. No one had ever stopped them. The best anyone could do was run. "We have tried everything," Velkar continued. His large black eyes showed his fear. "Our energy shields failed. Our peace offerings were ignored. Our weapons barely scratched their hulls. We need help." The council members looked at each other. The Altarians, with their advanced technology, shook their heads. They had lost 5 worlds to the Devourers 50 years ago. The Borvac Federation turned away. They had learned it was better to evacuate than fight. One by one, each species made it clear they could not help. Finally, the eldest council member, a Zentari named Quix, spoke up. "There is one species we have not asked." The room stirred uncomfortably. Everyone knew who Quix meant. "The humans?" someone asked. "They are too primitive. They still use chemical propulsion in half their ships. They fight among themselves. They are violent and unpredictable." "Yes," Quix said slowly. "They are all of those things. But they are also the only species that has never run from a fight they believed was right." Velkar's 4 hands clenched. "Will they help us?" "We are strangers to them. We have traded with them, but we are not allies." "There is only one way to find out," Quix said. 3 days later, on Earth, Admiral Sarah Chen sat in her office at the United Nations Space Command headquarters. The building floated in Earth's orbit, a massive structure that coordinated humanity's modest fleet of 800 ships. It was evening, and she was finishing paperwork when her aide, Lieutenant Martinez, burst through the door. "Admiral, we have a priority message from the Galactic Council," he said. He was breathing hard, like he had run all the way from the communications center. Chen raised an eyebrow. The Galactic Council rarely contacted Earth directly. Humans had only been spacefaring for 200 years. They were considered the newest and least advanced members of the galactic community. "Put it on the main screen," she said. The wall lit up with the image of Ambassador Velkar. Chen had never seen a Karathi look so desperate. Their species was known for being calm and logical, but Velkar looked terrified. "Admiral Chen," the alien began, "I am Ambassador Velkar of the Karathi Empire. We formally request military assistance from Earth and all human colonies. The Devourers are destroying our civilization. You are our last hope." Chen stood up slowly. She had read reports about the Devourers. Every human military officer had. They were the monster under the bed for every spacefaring species. "Ambassador, send us all your data," she said. "Everything you have on the Devourers, their attacks, your defensive attempts. I need to call a meeting of Earth's Defense Council." "Admiral," Velkar said, his voice breaking, "there is something else you should know. The Devourers, they do not just destroy military targets. In our system Beta 5, there was a colony of 2 million children. It was an education world where our young ones learn. The Devourers consumed it first. They seem to target the helpless." Chen's face hardened. Martinez saw her hands clench into fists. "How long do you have?" she asked. "At their current rate of advance, perhaps 3 of your months before they reach our home world. 12 billion Karathi live there." "We will review your data and give you an answer within 24 hours, Chen said. After the transmission ended, Chen turned to Martinez. "Call an emergency session. I want every admiral, general, and fleet commander online within the hour. And get me the presidents of Earth, Mars, and the Belt colonies." The meeting that followed was unlike any in human history. Over 300 of humanity's leaders appeared on screens around the conference room. Chen presented the data the Karathi had sent. She showed them images of the Devourers. Each ship was the size of a small moon, covered in metal and organic tissue. They moved like living creatures through space. She showed them the devastation. Entire planets stripped bare, nothing left but empty space. She showed them the refugee ships fleeing the Karathi systems packed with families. She showed them the colony of children that had been destroyed. General Thompson from Mars spoke first. "These things are beyond anything we have faced. Our entire fleet might not be enough. The council races have better technology than us, added Admiral Nakamura from Jupiter Station. If they cannot stop these things, what chance do we have? Chen stood up and walked to the center of the room. In 1940, Britain stood alone against an enemy that seemed unstoppable. They could have made peace. They could have run. They did not. In 2156, when the colony plague hit Mars, Earth sent every medical ship we had. We did not ask if it was safe. We went because they needed us. She paused and looked at each screen. Yes, we are primitive compared to the council races. Yes, we still fight among ourselves. But we are also the species that looked at space and said, we belong there. We are the ones who survived ice ages, plagues, and world wars. And we are the ones who have never, not once, failed to answer a call for help. President Williams of Earth leaned forward. What are you proposing, Admiral? I am proposing we do what humans do best, Chen said. We do not send a measured response. We do not send what we can spare. We send everything. Every ship, every weapon, every person willing to fight. We show the galaxy what happens when humanity is asked for help. The room was quiet for a long moment. Then President Martinez of Mars spoke. The mining ships can be converted to combat vessels. We have 10,000 of them. The belt colonies have 5,000 cargo haulers, President Kim added. They are not pretty, but we can strap weapons to them. Jupiter's shipyards can be running at full capacity within days, Admiral Nakamura said. We can bring the old warships out of mothballs. One by one, every leader began offering resources. Earth's crime syndicates, who had been listening in through hacked channels, sent a message offering their smuggling fleets. The corporate mining giants volunteered their private security forces. Even the isolationist colonies in the outer system agreed to help. Chen smiled. This was humanity at its best and worst. When threatened, when called upon, they did not hesitate. They did not calculate odds. They simply acted. She opened a channel to Ambassador Velkar. The alien appeared on screen, his forearms wrapped around himself in what looked like despair. Ambassador, Chen said, Earth accepts your request for aid. We will begin mobilization immediately. Velkar's large eyes widened. How many ships will you send? Chen looked him directly in the eyes. All of them. I do not understand. All of what? Every human ship capable of faster than light travel. Every military vessel, every cargo ship, every mining vessel, every private yacht. If it can hold a weapon and make the journey, it is coming. Velkar's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Behind Chen, the other human leaders nodded in agreement. But that must be thousands of ships. Tens of thousands. You would leave your own worlds defenseless. Chen's expression softened slightly. Ambassador, you asked humans for help. When we receive that call, we do not do things halfway. Your people are in danger. Children are dying. That is all we need to know. For the first time since the crisis began, Velkar felt something he had not felt in weeks. Hope. When can you be ready? He asked. Chen turned to look at the screens around her. Every human leader was already barking orders to their subordinates. The greatest mobilization in human history had begun. Give us 2 weeks to gather our forces, she said. Then we jump. The news spread across human space like wildfire. Within 6 hours of Admiral Chen's decision, every human on every world knew about the Karathi's request. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. On Earth, recruitment centers that had been quiet for years suddenly had lines stretching around city blocks. Veterans in their 70s and 80s came out of retirement, demanding to serve again. In New York, a 90-year-old former pilot named James Washington walked into a recruitment office with his old flight suit. I can still fly, he told the young officer at the desk. I fought in the colonial wars. If children are dying out there, I am going. The officer tried to explain age restrictions, but Washington would not leave. By the end of the day, Earth's government had created a special volunteer corps for older veterans. They would not fight on the front lines, but they would crew supply ships and handle logistics. Every bit of help mattered. On Mars, the transformation was even more dramatic. The Red Planet's massive mining operations shut down almost overnight. Huge drilling machines were pulled from the ground and refitted with weapons. The Martian workers, tough men and women who spent their lives breaking rocks, volunteered en masse. Maria Santos had worked the Mars mines for 20 years. She stood with 5,000 other miners in the main assembly area of Olympus Base. The foreman, a giant man named Boris, addressed them. They need ships and people to crew them, he said. Our haulers are slow and ugly, but they are tough. We can mount railguns on them. We can fill them with explosives if needed. Who is with me? Every single hand went up. In the asteroid belt, something unprecedented happened. The various factions that had been fighting over mining rights for decades called a complete ceasefire. The Free Belt Alliance and the Corporate Collective, enemies for 50 years, met on the neutral station of Ceres Prime. Captain Rex Morgan of the Alliance shook hands with Director Lisa Park of the Collective. Until this is over, we are one fleet, he said. Agreed, Park replied. My people have 3,000 ships. What about yours? 4,000. They are not pretty, but belt ships are built tough. Even Earth's criminal underworld joined the effort. In the shadowy ports of Europa, crime boss Viktor Kozlov called a meeting of all the major syndicates. These were people who had spent their lives avoiding the law, smuggling goods, and fighting each other. Listen up, Kozlov said to the gathered criminals. Those aliens out there, the devourers, they eat planets. You know what that means? No planets, no business. No business, no money. But more than that, they killed kids. Even we have lines we do not cross. A Yakuza leader named Tanaka stood up. My organization has 500 fast ships. They are yours. The Triads offer 600, another voice called out. Within hours, Earth's government received an encrypted message. The criminal organizations were offering 8,000 ships. No questions asked, no amnesty expected. They just wanted to help. But perhaps the most surprising response came from Earth's youth. Teenagers too young to enlist found other ways to contribute. In Mumbai, a 17-year-old hacker named Raj started a movement called Code for the Cause. Within days, 50,000 young programmers were working on software to help coordinate the massive fleet. The mobilization was not without problems. Admiral Chen stood in the command center, watching the chaos unfold on dozens of screens. Ships were launching without proper coordination. Supply lines were getting tangled. The volunteer forces had enthusiasm but no training. This is insane, General Thompson said, standing beside her. We have dental hygienists flying combat shuttles, accountants manning gun turrets. Half these ships do not even have proper life support for a long journey. Chen nodded. I know, but look at them, General. When have you ever seen humanity this united? On the screen, she watched a luxury yacht owned by a billionaire being fitted with missile launchers. Next to it, a garbage scow from Earth's orbit was being armored with steel plates. It was absurd. It was chaotic. It was humanity. 3 days into the mobilization, Ambassador Velkar arrived at Earth to coordinate with human forces. When his ship dropped out of FTL near Earth, he could not believe what he saw. The space around the planet was filled with ships, thousands upon thousands of them, with more arriving every hour. He was brought aboard the command station to meet Admiral Chen. As they walked through the corridors, Velkar saw something that amazed him. Humans of every nation, every background working side by side. He saw a Russian engineer helping an American pilot, a Chinese doctor treating an African soldier. Old enemies working as friends. I do not understand, he said to Chen. Our intelligence said humans were divided. You fight among yourselves constantly. Chen smiled. We do. We argue about everything. Politics, religion, sports teams. But when someone threatens innocent lives, especially children, we stop being different nations. We become one species. They entered the main command center. On the primary screen was a real-time count of the gathering fleet. The number read 23,567 ships and climbing. Velkar's forearms trembled. This is impossible. No species has ever mobilized this many vessels this quickly. You have not met humans before, Chen said. Let me show you something. She led him to a section of the command center where civilian volunteers were working. An elderly woman was programming navigation routes. A teenager was calculating fuel requirements. A former fast food worker was learning to operate communication systems. That woman there, Chen pointed to the elderly programmer, lost her grandson to a mining accident last year. She could be home grieving. Instead, she is here. That teenager hacked our recruitment database to change his age so he could volunteer. We let him stay because he is brilliant. That man worked in food service his whole life. Now he is learning military communications because he wants to help. Velkar watched the humans work. They were not particularly efficient. They made mistakes. They argued about procedures, but they kept working with a determination he had never seen. Why? He asked. Why do they all come? They do not know us. We have never helped Earth. Chen was quiet for a moment. There is an old Earth story, she said. A child once asked his grandfather why humans help strangers. The grandfather said that every human knows what it feels like to be afraid and alone. When we see someone else feeling that way, we remember our own fear, and we cannot walk away. Later that day, the alien ambassador attended a briefing with the human fleet commanders. The room was chaos. Admirals were shouting over each other. Captains were arguing about attack formations. The crime bosses were insisting their ships should stay together. The corporate representatives wanted guarantees about salvage rights. Velkar leaned over to Chen. They are not very organized. No, Chen agreed. But watch what happens next. She stood up and slammed her hand on the table. The room went silent. Enough, she said. We have 8 days before we jump. I do not care about your jurisdictions or your past grievances. We have one mission. Save the Karathi. Stop the Devourers. Everything else is secondary. She pulled up a holographic display of the fleet organization. Military vessels will form the core battle groups. Modified civilian ships will provide support and evacuation. Criminal fleets will use their speed for hit-and-run attacks. Everyone fights. Everyone contributes. Any questions? A crime boss raised his hand. What about payment? Before Chen could respond, the elderly veteran Washington stood up. He had been given honorary command of a supply ship. Payment, he said, his voice cracking with age but strong with conviction. Son, there are 12 billion souls waiting for us to save them. There are parents holding their children, wondering if today is their last day. There are probably kids right now looking at the sky, hoping someone will come. That is your payment. The knowledge that when the universe called, you answered. The room was silent. The crime boss nodded and sat down. Over the next week, the fleet continued to grow. Ships arrived from colonies Chen had never heard of. Mining vessels from the moons of Saturn. Research ships from the edge of the solar system. Even generation ships that had been traveling for decades turned around to join. By day 12, the fleet numbered 53,000 ships. It was the largest gathering of human vessels in history. They were mismatched, poorly coordinated, and half of them were held together by determination more than engineering. But they were ready. The night before the jump, the human fleet floated in space like a strange constellation. Military cruisers sat next to converted garbage haulers. Luxury yachts flew in formation with prison transport ships that had volunteered their service. It was the most unusual armada ever assembled. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the flagship, the UNS Perseverance. Around her, officers made final preparations. The journey they were about to undertake would be the longest collective FTL jump ever attempted by humanity. Normally, ships jumped in small groups. Jumping 50,000 ships at once was theoretical at best, insane at worst. Admiral, Lieutenant Martinez approached her. The Karathi have sent their latest intelligence. The Devourers have consumed another system. They are moving faster than predicted. Chen looked at the data. The images showed a once beautiful world, now nothing but empty space. Not even debris remained. The Devourers consumed everything, breaking down matter at the molecular level to build more of themselves. How long do the Karathi have? She asked. 6 weeks at most. Maybe less, Chen nodded. The journey would take 3 weeks. That left them 3 weeks to stop an enemy that had never been defeated. Ambassador Velkar was aboard the Perseverance as liaison. He approached Chen with his translator device blinking. Admiral, may I address your fleet before the jump? Of course, Ambassador. Velkar stood before the communication console. His message would reach every human ship. He cleared his throat, a strange sound with his alien physiology. Humans of Earth and all colonies, he began. I am Velkar of the Karathi Empire. 2 weeks ago, I came to your leaders with a desperate request. I hoped for perhaps a few dozen ships, maybe 100 if we were fortunate. He paused, his forearms gesturing at the view screen showing the massive fleet. You have given us 50,000. You have shut down your industries, left your worlds barely defended and united in a way our xenobiologists said was impossible for your species. I must tell you something my government did not want me to say. The bridge grew quiet. The Galactic Council told us not to ask you for help. They said humans were too primitive, too violent, too unpredictable. They said you would make things worse. But I studied your history. I read about something called Dunkirk, about Berlin airlift, about humans who ran into burning buildings to save strangers. I knew that if any species would help us, it would be you. He straightened all four of his arms. The Kirathi Empire will never forget this. Whatever happens, you have already given us something the Devourers could never take. Hope. After the ambassador finished, Chen activated the fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Begin jump countdown. Remember, stay with your assigned groups. Military ships will exit first to secure the area. Civilian vessels follow. Watch your spacing and God help us all. The countdown began. Throughout the fleet, humans made their own preparations. On a converted mining ship, Maria Santos and her crew of former miners said prayers in a dozen languages. On a luxury yacht-turned-missile boat, billionaire tech founder David Kim sat next to a former janitor named Pete, both manning weapons stations. Never thought I would die in space next to a rich guy, Pete joked. Never thought I would die next to someone who actually worked for a living, Kim replied. They both laughed. Fear had a way of making everyone equal. In the criminal fleet, Viktor Kozlov stood on his bridge, addressing his fellow smugglers and pirates. Remember, we are not heroes. We are practical people. But today, practical means keeping those planet eaters away from inhabited worlds, because dead customers buy nothing. His crew laughed, but he could see the fear in their eyes, and something else. Pride. For once, they were on the right side. Jump in T-minus 60 seconds, came the announcement. On the medical ship Hope, Dr. Yuki Tanaka checked her supplies one more time. She had volunteered to leave her comfortable practice on Earth to serve on a ship that was basically a flying hospital. Her staff included veterinarians, dentists, and medical students. They would have to do, Doctor, a young student asked. What if we cannot save them? What if we are too late? Tanaka looked at the girl. She was maybe 22, too young to see what was coming. Then we try anyway. That is what humans do. We try anyway. T-minus 30 seconds. Captain Rex Morgan of the Belt Alliance fleet stood with his former enemies from the corporate collective. They had spent years fighting each other over mining rights. Now they would jump into battle together. If we survive this, Director Park said, we should probably stop trying to kill each other. Deal, Morgan replied, but I still think you overcharge for processing fees. T-minus 10 seconds. Throughout the fleet, 50,000 ships engaged their FTL drives. The space around Earth began to warp and bend. It was beautiful and terrifying. Reality itself seemed to stretch. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, jump. The universe twisted. 50,000 ships vanished from Earth space and hurtled through the void faster than light. Inside each ship, humans held on as reality became fluid. The jump would take 3 weeks, but it would feel like moments and eternities simultaneously. During the jump, something unexpected happened. The ships could communicate with each other through quantum entanglement radios. It was supposed to be for emergencies only, but humans being humans, they started talking. A grandmother on a supply ship began broadcasting stories to keep morale up. A group of musicians on different ships started playing concerts. The crime bosses began teaching military tactics to civilian volunteers. Former enemies shared meals through video calls. Admiral Chen watched this from her ready room. General Thompson entered with a report. The civilians are fraternizing with the criminal elements, he said. The military crews are teaching yoga to the miners. Someone has started a fleet-wide poker tournament. This is highly irregular, Chen smiled. General, we are about to fight an enemy that eats planets. Regular went out the window 2 weeks ago. Let them bond. Let them become friends. They will fight harder for friends than for strangers. Halfway through the journey, the fleet received an updated transmission from the Kirathi. The situation was worse. The Devourers had accelerated their approach. They would reach the Kirathi homeworld in 4 weeks, not 6. Chen called a meeting of all ship captains through the quantum radio. 50,000 faces appeared on screens throughout her bridge. We have a problem, she said, explaining the situation. We need to arrive faster, but pushing our drives harder could destroy half the fleet. I am asking for volunteers to push their engines beyond safe limits. Every single captain volunteered. No, Chen said. I need honest assessments. Whose ships can handle it? After much discussion, 20,000 ships reported they could increase speed without certain destruction. The rest would follow at normal pace. The fleet split into 2 groups. The fast group pushed their engines to the breaking point. On the mining ship Determination, the engine room glowed red hot. The crew poured cooling fluid directly onto the drive core, knowing it would probably explode but might last long enough. On the yacht Crystal Dream, the owner David Kim watched his billion-dollar ship's hull start to buckle from the stress. He did not slow down. As they neared the Karathi system's sensors began picking up Devourer signals. The enemy knew they were coming. The Devourer sent a message on all frequencies. It was simple and terrifying. Turn back or be consumed. Admiral Chen's response was swift. She ordered every human ship to broadcast Earth music at maximum volume. 50,000 ships began blasting everything from classical Mozart to heavy metal to K-pop into space. It was humanity's answer. We are coming and we are not afraid. Actually, they were terrified, but they were coming anyway. The fast group would arrive in 12 hours. The Karathi homeworld had 16 hours before the Devourers reached it. It would be close. Too close. Chen gathered her bridge crew. When we exit FTL, we will have minutes to establish a defensive line. The Devourers do not negotiate. They do not retreat. They consume until stopped or until nothing remains. We have to hold them long enough for the rest of the fleet to arrive. Admiral, Martinez said quietly, 20,000 ships against the Devourers. The odds are not good. Lieutenant, Chen replied. Since when have humans cared about odds? As the final hour approached, throughout the fast fleet, humans prepared for what might be their last battle. Letters were written. Pictures were kissed. Prayers were said to gods both old and new. On the criminal ship Black Fortune, a pirate named Isabella stood at her gun station. She had spent her life running from fights. Now she would stand and face death itself. She found, to her surprise, that she was not running. The first wave of human ships dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Karathi home system. 20,000 vessels appeared in flashes of light, immediately moving into defensive positions. What they saw made even the bravest hearts skip a beat. The Devourers were magnificent and terrifying. Each ship was the size of a small moon, a twisted fusion of metal and organic tissue. They pulsed with a sickly green light, and tentacles the size of skyscrapers writhed from their hulls. There were dozens of them, moving through space like massive predators stalking prey. Behind them was nothing. Star systems they had passed through were simply gone. Not destroyed, not debris fields, just empty void where billions of lives once existed. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Perseverance, taking in the sight. All ships form defensive line Alpha. Military vessels prepare main guns. Civilian ships ready evacuation procedures for Karathi refugees. The human fleet spread out, creating a wall between the Devourers and the Karathi homeworld. It looked pathetic. 20,000 tiny ships against moon-sized monsters. The Devourers sent another message. This time it was not words but images. They showed world after world being consumed, species after species disappearing into their massive maws. It was meant to cause despair. Chen's response was to order every ship to fire one warning shot. 20,000 weapons discharged at once, creating a brilliant display of light. The message was clear. We see you. We are not running. On the mining ship Determination, Maria Santos and her crew watched their makeshift railguns charge up. They had welded the weapons to their hull just days ago. The guns were meant for breaking asteroids, not fighting alien monsters. Remember, Maria told her crew, we might be miners, but we have been breaking things bigger than us our whole lives. This is just another rock to crack. The Devourers began their advance. They moved slowly, confidently, like they had for centuries. No one had ever truly stood against them. As they approached, smaller creatures began launching from their hulls. Thousands of fighter-sized parasites, each capable of stripping a ship in minutes. Here they come, Chen announced. All ships engage at will. Make them pay for every meter. The battle erupted. Human weapons fire lit up space. Nuclear missiles, railgun slugs, laser beams, and even improvised explosives filled the void. The criminal fleet, using their speed, darted in and out, placing mines and firing before retreating. The military ships formed firing lines, their trained crews laying down coordinated barrages. But it was the civilians who surprised everyone. The luxury yacht Crystal Dream, owned by David Kim, did something insane. Kim had filled his ship's swimming pool with industrial fuel and rigged it to explode. He flew directly at a cluster of parasites and detonated it, taking hundreds of them with him. His last transmission was, "Tell my kids I finally did something that mattered." The converted garbage scow humanity's trash, crewed by sanitation workers from New York, used their magnetic collectors to grab parasites and fling them into each other. It was crude but effective. "Admiral," Lieutenant Martinez shouted, "the Perseverance's shields are failing. We have hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. Seal those sections and keep firing," Chen ordered. "We hold the line." On the medical ship Hope, Dr. Tanaka and her staff worked frantically. Ships were being torn apart, and escape pods filled with wounded humans were flooding the medical bays. A dentist performed emergency surgery. A veterinarian treated plasma burns on humans. "Applying lessons learned from treating dogs, Doctor. We are running out of supplies," a nurse reported. "Then we improvised," Tanaka replied, using dental floss to suture a wound. "Humans have been improvising medicine since we lived in caves." The Devourers seemed confused by the human tactics. When they destroyed one ship, 2 more took its place. When they advanced, humans did not retreat but instead moved closer. The prison transport ship Second Chance, crewed by former inmates who had volunteered, flew directly into a Devourer's mouth and detonated their engines. The explosion did not destroy the creature, but it made it hesitate. That hesitation was what Chen had been waiting for. "Now, execute Plan Crazy Ivan." It was a plan so insane that even the human generals had argued against it. 100 of the fastest ships, mostly from the criminal fleets, had been loaded with nuclear weapons and volunteers who knew they would not return. They accelerated to maximum speed and flew directly at the Devourer's main ship. Viktor Kozlov led the charge personally. The crime boss, who had spent his life avoiding danger, now flew toward certain death. "For every child you killed," he broadcast to the Devourers, "we give you 100 human souls who choose to stop you. We are not prey. We are the predator you never expected." The suicide runs hit their targets. Massive explosions bloomed across the Devourers' hulls. For the first time in their recorded history, the creatures showed damage. Green fluid leaked from wounds in their organic armor. But the cost was terrible. 5,000 human ships were gone in the first hour. The defensive line was breaking. The Devourers pushed forward, their massive forms crushing smaller ships just by moving through them. On the bridge of a converted cargo hauler, Captain Rex Morgan of the Belt Alliance watched his scanner. Half his fleet was gone. Beside him, Director Park of the Corporate Collective was bleeding from a head wound. "We cannot hold much longer," Park said. "We do not have to," Morgan replied, pointing at his screen. "Look, 30,000 more human ships dropped out of FTL. The second wave had arrived. Leading them was something unexpected. Earth's museum ships, vessels that had not flown in combat for a century. The USS Enterprise, a nuclear carrier converted for space. The Yamato rebuilt from historical plans. The Victory, Nelson's flagship redesigned for the stars. Old Earth had sent its history to war. James Washington, the 90-year-old pilot, flew the Enterprise. His voice crackled over the radio. "This is the old guard. We might be ancient, but we remember how to fight. All ships, implement Strategy Washington." It was a strategy from Earth's Second World War adapted for space. The fresh ships did not form a line. Instead, they created a 3-dimensional sphere around the Devourers, attacking from every angle at once. Up and down lost meaning as humans struck from all directions. The Devourers, used to 2-dimensional thinking from species that fought in traditional space battles, could not adapt quickly enough. Their massive size became a disadvantage as smaller human ships used them for cover, firing and dodging between the tentacles. But the real surprise came from the hackers. Raj, the 17-year-old from Mumbai, had not been idle during the journey. He and 50,000 young programmers had been working on something special. As the battle raged, they executed their plan. Every human ship began broadcasting a signal. Not a weapon, not a message, but a virus. It was based on Earth computer viruses, but adapted using Karathi data about the Devourers' biomechanical nature. The Devourers were part organic, part machine. They had to have some kind of network to coordinate. The virus found it. It was not much, just a small connection between the creatures, but it was enough. The virus spread from one devourer to another, not destroying them but confusing them. For creatures that had acted in perfect harmony for millennia, suddenly being unable to coordinate was devastating. The Devourers began firing on each other. Their tentacles tangled. Their formation broke. "Now," Chen ordered. "Everything we have. Every remaining human ship fired at once. Nuclear weapons, kinetic strikes, energy beams, even kitchen sinks that one crew had loaded into a torpedo tube as a joke. The barrage was incredible. The largest devourer, the one that seemed to lead them, turned toward the human fleet. It sent one final message, not words or images, but a feeling. Surprise. These primitive creatures had done something no advanced civilization had managed. They had hurt the devourers, but the creature was not done. It opened its massive maw, preparing to unleash something. Energy built up inside it, growing brighter and brighter. Captain Rodriguez of the Santa Maria, a ship that had lost engines and weapons, made a choice. He ordered all remaining power to thrusters and aimed his ship at the creature's mouth. "If I am going to die," he said, "it will be giving you indigestion." The Santa Maria flew into the devourer's throat just as it released its energy weapon. The ship exploded inside the creature, causing the energy to backfire. The massive devourer writhed in agony, its death throes destroying 3 more of its kind. The remaining devourers did something unprecedented. They retreated. These creatures that had consumed galaxies, that had never known defeat, turned and fled toward the edge of the galaxy. The human fleet was too exhausted to pursue. Of the 50,000 ships that had started the journey, 30,000 remained. 20,000 brave souls had given their lives to save a species they had never met before 2 weeks ago. As the devourers disappeared into the void, one final message was detected from their leader. It was being recorded in some kind of biological memory. The translation was simple. Species 327b, humans. Avoid at all costs. Consumption benefit does not justify losses. Extreme caution required. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary. The humans had not just won. They had become the monster's nightmare. The silence after battle was deafening. Where space had been filled with explosions and screaming metal, now there was only the quiet hum of damaged ships limping through the void. Debris floated past the windows of the surviving vessels, each piece a memorial to someone who had given everything. Admiral Chen stood on what remained of the Perseverance's bridge. Half the ceiling had collapsed and emergency lights cast strange shadows. She was bleeding from a dozen cuts, but she remained standing. Around her, the surviving crew worked to restore basic systems. "Casualty report," she said quietly. Lieutenant Martinez, his arm in a makeshift sling, read from his damaged tablet. 20,000 ships lost. Over 2 million humans dead. The Perseverance alone lost 800 souls. Chen closed her eyes. 2 million. Each one had a name, a family, a story. Each one had chosen to be here. The Karathi? She asked. Safe, Martinez replied. All 12 billion of them? The Devourers never reached their world. Chen nodded. That was what mattered. That was why those 2 million had died. Across the battlefield, survivors began the slow work of rescue and recovery. The medical ship Hope, somehow still intact, became the center of relief efforts. Dr. Tanaka had not slept in 40 hours, but she kept working. A young Karathi medical officer had joined her staff, tears streaming from his 4 eyes as he helped treat human wounded. "Why do you cry?" Tanaka asked him while treating a burned pilot. "Your species barely knows us," the Karathi replied. "Yet you bled for us. You died for us. My people have a word, Velarith. It means a debt that can never be repaid. Every Karathi now owes humanity Velarith." On the mining ship Determination, Maria Santos sat with the 30 members of her crew who had survived. They had started with 200. They did not speak. They just sat together, holding hands, grateful to still be breathing. A message came through from Earth. President Williams appeared on screens throughout the fleet. She looked older than she had 3 weeks ago. The cost of sending humanity's children to die had aged her. "Heroes of humanity," she began. "You have done something that history will remember forever. You answered a call for help, and you answered it with everything we had. The price was terrible. But 12 billion souls live today because you paid it." She paused, composing herself. "Earth is preparing to welcome you home. Every nation, every colony, every person wants to thank you. But I know many of you are looking around and seeing who is not coming home. We will honor them. Every name will be remembered." After the president's message, Ambassador Velkar requested to address the fleet. His image appeared, and behind him stood thousands of Karathi, all with their forearms raised in their highest gesture of respect. "Humans," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "The Galactic Council called you primitive. They called you violent. They were wrong. You are the most civilized species we have encountered, because civilization is not about technology or culture. It is about what you do when someone needs help. He gestured to the crowds behind him. Every Karathi child will learn human names. Every Karathi city will have monuments to your sacrifice. Our fastest ships are already heading to Earth with our best medical technology to help your wounded. Our engineers will help you rebuild. This is not payment. As my medical officer said, this debt can never be repaid. But we will try. The journey home took another 3 weeks. The fleet moved slowly, damaged ships being towed by those still functional. The criminal fleets, having lost their leader Viktor Kozlov in the suicide run, formally requested to be integrated into Earth's defense forces. Their request was granted. Heroes were heroes regardless of their past. During the journey, something beautiful happened. The Karathi ships that had come to help arrived with more than medical supplies. They brought messages from across the galaxy. The Altarians, the Borvak, even the ancient Zentari, all sent communications of awe and respect. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Every species wanted to know how humans had done what no one else could do. The recording of the battle was played in the Great Chamber. When it showed the suicide runs, the aliens watched in stunned silence. When it showed the garbage scow flinging parasites, some actually laughed. When it showed 90-year-old James Washington leading the museum ships into battle, many stood in respect. The Council voted unanimously to offer humanity a permanent seat on the Security Committee with the title Galactic Protectors. The message was sent to Admiral Chen. She read it to her bridge crew. They want to make us the galaxy's police force. What should we tell them? Martinez asked. Chen thought for a moment. Tell them we accept, but with conditions. We will answer any call for help, from any species, no matter how small or primitive. We do not fight for the strong. We fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. The message was sent and immediately accepted. As Earth came into view, the surviving fleet saw something that made them cry. Every ship that had stayed behind, every satellite, every space station, had their lights on and arranged to spell out 2 words in space. Welcome, heroes. The landing ceremonies lasted for weeks. Every returning crew was met with celebrations. But the real ceremonies were quieter. Families received flags and medals for those who did not return. Children asked when mommy or daddy was coming home. Spouses stood at empty graves. Maria Santos stood at one such grave, placing flowers for the 170 miners from her crew who had died. A small Karathi child approached her. Through a translator, the child said, "My mother says you saved us." "Thank you." Maria knelt down to the child's level. "We all saved each other," she said. 6 months after the battle, memorials were completed on every human world. But the greatest memorial was built at the battle site itself, a massive space station, constructed jointly by humans and Karathi, floating where the battle had been fought. On its walls were 2 million names. Inside was a museum telling the story of when humanity answered the call. The galaxy had changed. Species that had hidden from threats now formed defense pacts with humans. Pirates and raiders fled at the mere rumor of human ships in the area. The devourers never returned, their biological memory warning them of the insane species that had turned predators into prey. But the biggest change was in humanity itself. The unity forged in those desperate weeks did not completely fade. Earth's nations still argued, but they also remembered what they could do together. The criminal organizations kept their promise to stay legitimate. The corporations that had given their ships were rebuilt with alien technology, making Earth prosperous. 1 year after the battle, a celebration was held. Survivors gathered on Earth from across the human colonies. Admiral Chen, now bearing the title Galactic Protector, gave a speech. "We did not win because we were strong," she said. "We won because we were human. Because when someone calls for help, we do not ask if it is logical. We do not calculate odds. We simply go. That is what makes us who we are." She paused, looking at the crowd of humans and aliens. The galaxy knows us now. They know that humans are crazy, that we are primitive, that we strap weapons to garbage ships and fly them into the mouths of monsters. But they also know that when the darkness comes, when hope seems lost, humans will stand in the gap. 20 years passed. A new generation grew up knowing the story of the Great Battle. Human and Karathi children played together on mixed colonies. The memorial station became a pilgrimage site for dozens of species. Then, one quiet morning, a message arrived at Earth's monitoring station. It was from the edge of the galaxy, from a species no one had heard of called the Melody. Their message was simple. We are under attack. Please help. The young officer who received the message looked at his supervisor, Admiral Martinez, who had been Lieutenant Martinez 20 years ago. Should we ask who is attacking them? Should we ask for details? The officer asked. Martinez smiled. No, send the response. What response, sir? Martinez looked at the stars, thinking of Chen, who had retired but whose words still guided them. Tell them humanity is coming. Tell them to hold on. Tell them. He paused, remembering the battle, the sacrifice, the victory. Tell them we are bringing everyone. Within hours, the call went out across human space. Once again, the shipyards fired up. Once again, volunteers lined up. Once again, humanity prepared to do what humanity did best. Stand for those who could not stand alone. The Melody received Earth's response and could not believe it. They had asked for help from a species they had only heard stories about. The response was beyond their comprehension. Melody friends, this is Earth Command. We have received your distress call. Mobilization has begun. Fleet size currently at 15,000 ships and growing. Estimated arrival in 4 weeks. Message to your attackers. They have 3 weeks to reconsider. Message to you. You are not alone anymore. Humanity stands with you. In the depths of space, the Memorial Station detected something interesting. A fragment of devourer biomatter kept for study reacted to the news of humanity mobilizing again. It pulsed once, sending out a biological signal to its scattered kind. The message was simple. The humans are moving. Do not be in their path. Even nightmares knew to fear the species that had turned primitive into power and violent into valor. The galaxy had learned a fundamental truth. When you ask humans for help, you do not get a measured response.